Welcome to St. John's 2-year Bible reading program. Father Dominic invites you to explore the entire Bible through daily readings from both the Old and New Testaments. Each session concludes with a reflective question and with a reflective reply provided at the beginning of the next day's reading. Enjoy the journey, and may God bless you.
How does God's response to David reflect his sovereignty? In the second book of Samuel, chapter 7, God responds to David's desire to build a temple, showing his sovereignty. David wishes to honor God with a permanent dwelling, but God redirects him, promising to establish David's lineage instead. This highlights their covenant relationship and the humility needed to accept God's will. By establishing a dynasty through David, God asserts control over history and redemption. We learn to embrace God's greater plans, fostering trust and receptiveness to his authority. Ultimately, this chapter reassures us that God's ways are higher. His purposes will prevail. How does the prediction of Jesus' death explain his mission? In the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 9, verses 44 to 50, Jesus shares his profound predictions about his death, revealing his mission of love and redemption. His awareness of the suffering he would face emphasizes the necessity of his sacrifice for the salvation of all humanity. This should inspire a humble heart in us and remind us of the importance of embracing suffering as part of God's greater plan. It encourages us to value humility and service above ambition. Understanding this is important for our spiritual journeys, guiding us to follow in his footsteps. Jesus' prediction assures us that true greatness in God's kingdom blossoms from self-sacrifice and love. It gently urges us to live with purpose and compassion, while reminding us how deeply he cherishes us. Day 171, our reading from the second book of Samuel, chapters 9 and 10. David asked, "Is there any survivor of Saul's house to whom I may show kindness for the sake of Jonathan?" Now there was an official of the house of Saul named Ziba. He was summoned to David, and the king asked him, "Are you Ziba?" He replied, "Your servant." Then the king asked, "Is there any survivor of Saul's house to whom I may show God's kindness?" Ziba answered the king, "There is still Jonathan's son, the one whose feet are crippled." The king asked him, "Where is he?" And Ziba answered the king, "He is in the house of Machir, son of Ammiel, in Lodabar." So King David sent for him and had him brought from the house of Machir, son of Ammiel, from Lodabar. When Merib-Baal, son of Jonathan, son of Saul, came to David, he fell down in homage. David said, "Merib-Baal," and he answered, "Your servant." "Do not be afraid," David said to him. "I will surely be kind to you for the sake of Jonathan, your father. I will restore to you all the lands of Saul, your grandfather, and you shall eat at my table always." Bowing low, he answered, "What am I, your servant, that you should pay attention to a dead dog like me?" The king then called Ziba, Saul's attendant, and said to him, "All that belonged to Saul and to his entire house I am giving to the Lord's son. You and your sons and servants must till the land for him. You shall bring in the produce, which shall be food for your Lord's household to eat. But Merib-Baal, your Lord's son, shall always eat at my table." Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Ziba answered the king, "Whatever my lord the king commands his servant, so shall your servant do." So Merib-Baal ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Merib-Baal had a young son whose name was Micah, and all the tenants of his household worked for Merib-Baal. But Merib-Baal lived in Jerusalem, because he always ate at the king's table. He was lame in both feet. After this, the king of the Ammonites died, and Hanun his son succeeded him as king. David said, I will show kindness to Hanun, son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness to me. Therefore David sent his servants to Hanun to console him concerning his father. But when David's servants had entered the land of the Ammonites, the Ammonite princes said to their lord Hanun, Do you think David is doing this, sending you these counselors to honor your father? Is it not rather to explore the city, to spy on it, and to overthrow it, that David has sent his servants to you? So Hanun seized David's servants, shaved off half their beards, cut away the lower halves of their garments at the buttocks, and sent them away. David was told of it, and he sent word for them to be intercepted, for the men had been greatly disgraced. Remain at Jericho, the king told them, until your beards have grown again, then come back here. When the Ammonites realized that they were in bad odor with David, they sent for and hired 20,000 Aramean foot soldiers from Beth-rehob and Zobah, as well as the king of Maacah, with 1,000 men, and 12,000 men from Tob. When David heard of this, he sent Joab and his whole army of warriors against them. The Ammonites marched out and lined up for battle at the entrance of their city gate, while the Arameans of Zobah and Rehob and the men of Tob and Maacah remained apart in the open field. When Joab saw that there was a battle line both in front of and behind him, he chose some of the best fighters of Israel and lined them up against the Arameans. The rest of the army he placed under the command of his brother Abishai and lined up to oppose the Ammonites. And he said, If the Arameans prove too strong for me, you must come and save me. And if the Ammonites prove too strong for you, I will come to save you. Hold firm, and let us show ourselves courageous for the sake of our people and the cities of our God. And may the Lord do what is good in his sight. Joab therefore advanced with his men for battle with the Arameans, but they fled before him. And when the Ammonites saw that the Arameans had fled, they too fled before Abishai and re-entered their city. Joab then ceased his attack on the Ammonites and came to Jerusalem. Seeing themselves vanquished by Israel, the Arameans held a full muster of troops. Hadadezer sent for and brought Arameans from beyond the river. They came to Helam with Shobak, the captain of Hadadezer's army, at their head. When this was reported to David, he gathered all Israel together, crossed the Jordan, and went to Helam. The Arameans drew up in formation against David and gave battle. But the Arameans fled before Israel, and David killed 700 of their chariot fighters and 40,000 of their foot soldiers. He struck down Shobak, commander of the army, and he died on the field. When Hadadezer's vassal kings saw themselves vanquished by Israel, they made peace with the Israelites and became their subjects. After this, the Arameans were afraid to give further aid to the Ammonites. How can we learn from David's kindness to his enemy? Day 171. Our reading from the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 9, verses 51 to 62. When the days for his being taken up were fulfilled, he resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On the way they entered a Samaritan village to prepare for his reception there, but they would not welcome him, because the destination of his journey was Jerusalem. When the disciples James and John saw this, they asked, Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to consume them? Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they journeyed to another village. As they were proceeding on their journey, someone said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus answered him, "Foxes have dens, and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to rest his head." To another he said, "Follow me." But he replied, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." But he answered him, "Let the dead bury their dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." And another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but first let me say farewell to my family at home." To him Jesus said, "No one who sets a hand to a plow and looks to see what was left behind is fit for the kingdom of God." How do Jesus' teaching about discipleship relate to modern commitment?